Hello everybody, welcome to the Java course. When we create our own classes, we don't always require the classes to create real objects or real instances. We can simply set up a general idea for a class, and from the general idea, we can create other classes that would make the idea more concrete. So we have an example like this. We have musical instrument class, and it is not that easy for us to really create a musical instrument object, because a musical instrument can have a variety of properties. And a musical instrument can be simply a violin. And for a violin, it is not that concrete enough, because we can have another type of violin called electric violin. So in this hierarchy, we can set up the musical instrument class, which is an abstract class. And from the musical instrument abstract class, we can set up a violin abstract class. And from the violin abstract class, we can create a concrete class called electric violin. So we can have clearer idea of the object formation. So we create some abstract classes first, and from the abstract classes, we generate other concrete classes. This is one example. We can also have another example like this. From musical instrument abstract class, we create a concrete class called flute. So let us see how we can generate these abstract and concrete classes. When we want to generate abstract classes, we have to add a word abstract between public and class. It means that the musical instrument class is an abstract class. So for this abstract class, we cannot create concrete objects. We simply give a very general idea of the classes that we are going to generate by using the musical instrument abstract class. First, I have a certain instance variable called type. I use the word private to denote the access modifier of this instance variable. Type is simply telling the type of the musical instrument. It can be a wind instrument or it can be a string instrument. So a violin is a string instrument and a flute is a wind instrument in my case. Different instruments will have different means to play. So I don't specify the exact implementation of the play method. So in this case, I would use the word abstract between public and void to indicate that the play method is abstract to the musical instrument abstract class. So the play method will be implemented when we really generate the concrete class later. Okay, here are simply the getter and setter methods for the abstract class musical instrument. So for every musical instrument that I create concretely later, I will give the type of the musical instrument by using the getter method and the setter method. If we want to create the violin class based on the musical instrument class, how can I do that? I have to rely on the musical instrument class. Since in my hierarchy, violin is still an abstract class, I have to use the word abstract between public and class. And because violin is going to have the properties from the musical instrument abstract class, I have to use the keyword extends. That means I'm going to create a subclass of musical instrument, which is also an abstract class. So the violin class is not able to give me concrete objects. We have to notice that the violin is still an abstract class. So for an abstract class, I still don't tell the implementation of the play method, because the play method is different for different concrete objects. When we go to the electric violin, we are able to set up the play method for the electric violin concrete class. One thing to know is that when we have any of the methods being abstract, the class has to be abstract class. So for musical instrument, the play method isn't implemented yet, so the whole class becomes abstract. Same for the violin class, because the play method is not yet implemented, the whole class becomes abstract. And then I can do the electric violin class coming from the violin class. Because an electric violin is a concrete object in my hierarchy, I don't put the abstract keyword in between public and class. So this class is a concrete class. Of course, electric violin class extends violin. It means that I create a subclass of violin. Here I really implement the play method because the class is now concrete. The play method is like this. I simply plug in a socket and plug a string. So because violin extends musical instrument, the type instance variable is already inherited automatically. Same for the electric violin class. The type instance variable from the topmost hierarchy called musical instrument is also inherited for us already. So I don't need to set up the type and an instance variable together with the getter method and setter method for the instance variable called type in the concrete class called electric violin. So let's see how I can make use of the electric violin class to create a concrete object. Here I simply use the ordinary construction of objects with the new keyword. Since I don't set up the constructor for the electric violin class, I would simply use the default constructor. Okay, how can I set up the type of the electric violin? I simply use the setType method. Inherited from where? From the musical instrument class. Okay. When I run the printing statement like this, I will get the type string as the answer. If I want to play the electric violin, what will happen? Yes, I will get the printing statement out, which comes from the electric violin play method, which is now a concrete implementation of the play method. And another example is creating a flute class. When I have the musical instrument abstract class, I can create the flute class, which is a concrete class. Of course, it extends musical instrument. And the flute is a concrete class. We don't put the word abstract between public and class. Because flute is a concrete class, I really need to implement the play method inherited from the musical instrument class, which is an abstract class. What should I do? I simply blow air into the tube in order to make sound from a flute. And for the flute class, I can create some new method pertaining to the concrete class called flute only. I want to change the color of a flute to another one. So this statement is simply telling me that the color of the flute is now changed to another one. So how can I call the methods of the flute class in the driver program? First, I need to create an object. Again, I make use of the default constructor. And for flute whose reference variable is f1, I can set the type of it. This time it is a wind instrument. When I print the result out, I will get wind as the answer, coming from the getType method pertaining to the f1 object. When I tell f1 to play, I will have the statement coming out, blow air into the tube. How can I change the color of a flute? When I set the actual parameter of the paint method to red, I will have this statement coming out, the flute is painted to red. Here we can tell something more about the hierarchy issue. Because electric violin is a subclass of the violin class, which is a subclass of the musical instrument class, I can make an electric violin object to have the musical instrument type, even though the musical instrument type is actually an abstract class. So let me try to declare M1 as having musical instrument data type. When I play the musical instrument M1, what will I get? I will still get the play method pertaining to the electric violin method. Why? Because when we do so, we simply go back to the actual object and call the method coming from the actual object. Since the actual object is having the data type electric violin, we will simply go back to the electric violin class to search for the play method from the electric violin class. Therefore, the label here doesn't affect the play method. I simply go back to the actual object implementation to get the play method, and then from this play method I do the implementation directly. So here the label doesn't affect the method for the actual object. And as a reminder, we can't do something like this. Yes, we can see that we cannot instantiate the type musical instrument. So it means that we can't create an object from an abstract class. So when we have the word abstract in the class declaration, we are not allowed to create a concrete object by using the new keyword. So this assignment is not allowed. So after the introduction of the abstract class in this video, I hope you're able to make use of the abstract class to generalize your idea of class and object creation more easily and more conveniently. When we really want to generate a concrete object, we simply omit the abstract keyword in the class declaration.